Thanks, Ricky. 911.
The explosive power of fire can fool even experienced professionals with years of training. In this oil refinery incident, the firefighter was fortunate to escape with his life. Each year, more than 30,000 Americans are not as lucky and are seriously injured. In fact, the United States leads the industrialized world in fire deaths. More people die in New York City alone from fire than in all of Japan. And Americans are 7 times more likely to suffer a death from fire than the Swiss. Why are we at such risk when we compare ourselves to other countries? This program examines the reasons behind the statistics. We'll also give you some ideas on what you can do to make your workplace safer. California State Fire Marshal Ron Coleman is past president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. He believes a big part of the problem in the United States is attitude.
People have fires and what happens? The Red Cross shows up and the Salvation Army shows up and people put them up for the night and they get their picture on the front page of the newspaper. There's no personal accountability in this country for fire and life safety. You go to Europe, it's considered to be a crime against society to have a fire. It's not okay to have a fire.
According to Devonshire Police, 4 people are being held for questioning. Open fuel containers used for farm equipment reportedly caused the fire. At this hour, the blaze...
We do not have, in our country, at least in my opinion, a well-developed sense of responsibility for fire safety. Everybody thinks it's the fire department's job. And I, being a fireman for 30-some-odd years, can tell you that about 90% of the time, when we go out there, we're almost too late.
For 25 employees at this industrial plant, it was too late.
What happened there was the exits were blocked. And even if they had the exits, they're not properly maintained.
It is one of the worst tragedies in our state's history, and at this point, I've not been briefed as to whether they know what the cause of it is. I'll try to find out.
What was the situation like in there? I mean, just...
a pack of sardines back there in a can. Everybody trying to get out, knocking on the wall and stuff.
Just very black, very, very teetotal darkness, the blackest darkness I've ever seen.
A lot of crying, screaming, a lot of people getting knocked down. I just knew I was gonna die.
Almost all workplace fires are traced to preventable causes. Defective electrical equipment and wiring account for 39% of all fires. Arson is the second leading cause at 21%. And smoking or open flames is the cause in 14% of workplace fires. These are the 3 primary causes we'll examine in this program. But fire experts point to an often overlooked factor that may be even more important.
I've gone on thousands of fires. I don't even know how many I've gone on. And I would say that a fire in a well-kept place of business and a fire in a well-kept residence is a rarity. But I've gone on thousands of them where you had to practically fight your way through the garbage to get to the fire. The best fire prevention officer in the world, in my opinion, is a good housekeeper. Because a good housekeeper doesn't allow conditions to exist that are going to result in a fire.
But safety officers say convincing busy employees can be a challenge.
They seem to feel that very often I'm taking them away from their real mission. Their real mission is productivity. They have a job that they have to get done. And they're telling me, I don't have time. Why do I need to spend my time on this? And so I tell them that it's an important piece of work.
Fire inspectors like Captain Charlie Johnson agree. Good housekeeping is the starting point. His inspections always begin in the same spot.
Storage closets, my favorite place.
Storage closets often start out as electrical utility closets, then get filled with materials that block the electrical panels.
That's dangerous because we can't access it. And if it's dark, it's smoky, we're trying to find it. And if we haven't been in that building to inspect it recently, we won't know where it is. And if there's stuff in front of it or around it, then if your panel fails, you're going to start a fire right there. You've put a fire load right by the source.
There are other dangers that contribute to the high rate of electrical fires. Overloaded outlets, frayed cords and defective plugs, extension cords used as a permanent rather than a temporary source of electricity, and defective circuit breakers with makeshift repairs.
People tape the actual circuit breaker in the on position. Well, when they do this, as soon as that circuit's overloaded, let's say you're working a particular machine, it's not going to reset when it shorts. If you're the short, you have all the electricity going through you, normally the circuit breaker would throw. In this case, it wouldn't. So you would just continue receiving an electrical shock and further your injuries.
And of course, as you can see, they've got a number of pieces of electrical equipment, the computer and the screen and all this.
Captain Charlie Johnson suggests giving the responsibility to one person in your organization to regularly inspect for electrical hazards.
None of the cords appear to be frayed, which is real good.
But organizations who are not cautious are gambling with safety.
They better be prepared, because it's probably going to happen sooner or later.
I didn't do nothing. 415 in progress at 682 West Lincoln. Suspect baby
My brother owns this house.
If you take all of the crime committed in the United States and you add up all of the money lost in a full year, every single dollar lost in every form of crime, the total will still not equal the country's most expensive crime. The toll in the Southern California arson fires of 1993 left the nation stunned. In the aftermath, government leaders were searching for ways to stop the next arsonist.
Mr. President, let me indicate that I just happened to be watching CNN last night, and I heard the governor of California talking about increasing crimes for arson. And we'll hear later from the senator from California, millions and millions of dollars of damage done, and they still haven't found the person or persons who may be responsible.
Only 2% of suspected arsonists ever serve time in jail. Because it's so hard to catch the arsonist, the best way to prevent arson fires is by knowing what to look for.
Go outside yourself and say, okay, I want to burn this building down. What's the best way to do it? And then go through 2 or 3 scenarios like you're an arsonist. And then try to see it from their point of view, and then do everything you can to neutralize all those possibilities that the arsonist would use.
Poorly lit facilities and parking areas will make you more vulnerable to the arsonist.
Yeah, that's very true. We've installed some additional lighting at the office. We have a parking lot that's kind of dark on the back. We put in some sensor lights and things like that. I tell my clients if that's possible, if it's not too expensive, to go ahead and consider those kind of things. We find that helps deter crime.
A landscape tree becomes a deadly torch in the hands of an arsonist, enabling fires to eventually engulf buildings miles from the original site.
And the reason for that is because arson-caused fires are resulting in fires in the urban-wildland interface, and we don't destroy 1 or 2 houses at a time. We're now destroying 200 or 300 houses at a time.
And cut completely through the branch, there's a chance that as the...
Good maintenance can help make a landscape more fire-resistant. Removing tree limbs that extend under rooflines and over structures. Cleaning away dead wood and branches that can add fuel to a fire. For new landscapes, you can incorporate plants with lower resin content that are less flammable.
Making sure the trash cans get emptied every night. Arsonists love to use trash cans. Just start it in a trash can, and maybe they won't even put it down to arson because it started in a trash can. Great place to start a fire.
Even after watching the tragic results of arson-caused fires, many in America continue to see arson as a minor crime.
It's kind of like, a lot of people looked at an arsonist like a grown-up kid who set a fire, and how can you really get upset with him? Because after all, you know, kids set fires type of thing. That's not true. As a matter of fact, arsonists are now as lethal a criminal as you can ever run across.
This is the Slim cigarette made just for women. New Virginia Slims, with rich Virginia flavor you'll like. Slimmer than the fat cigarettes men smoke. New Virginia Slims.
You got your own cigarette now, baby. You come a long, long way.
America has come a long way. When this 1968 commercial was playing, almost half the population was smoking. By 1994, that figure had dropped to less than 1 in 4. 24%. Still, smoking and open flames remain the third leading cause of workplace fires.
I have never actually seen a fire physically started by somebody holding a cigarette in their hand. It's when the cigarette is disposed of that we have the problem. If you're going to smoke, there's got to be a way of disposing of it safely, and flipping it in the trash can or flipping it out the window. That's not safe disposal.
There are an estimated 2,300 deaths in the United States every year from cigarettes carelessly discarded. At the California Bureau of Home Furnishings, they're testing ways to reduce the number of deaths and injuries. After placing a normal cigarette on this chair, the cushion bursts into flames and continues to spread quickly. The Bureau says that a fire-safe cigarette, one that stops burning within 2 minutes if not smoked, would clearly save lives. But even though cigarettes can be made safer, carelessness is still a major cause of smoking-related fires. If your organization permits smoking, set aside designated areas away from non-smokers and flammable materials. For both health and safety reasons, the number of smoke-free workplaces in the United States continues to increase. This is the image that comes to mind for most of us when we think of an office. But 40 million Americans work in an office that's quite different.
Hi, Mary. Yeah, Richard here.
Today, there are offices in almost half of the homes in America. And it's natural to overlook in our home office what we take more seriously in a traditional office.
What I'm looking for, Bill, is a heater for a small office that I have at the house here, and I was looking at these two tiles.
Portable space heaters are an example.
If you're going to use a portable heater, it's real important that it be in an area where it's stable. It can't be knocked over. It can't have a cord jerk and pull the thing over on its side. It can't be stored near combustible material. If you've got small children, you got to make sure that they're protected against having access to it.
I'm wondering about which of these two might be the best.
The issue is not which one's better than the other. The issue is the practice of using them. The one thing you can't test for a heater is how people are really going to use it.
Firefighters caution against misusing another home office tool.
Get rid of the extension cords. Extension cords are temporary wiring that is done at the time of use. It's not there for wiring all the time, because they will heat up and they will start fires.
Removing the fire dangers in your home office, then knowing how you'll escape if there is a fire, will give you the advantage you may need in an emergency.
About 99% of the population thinks it's never going to happen to them. In the state of California, for example, we average about 2.2 million alarms per year. Of that, about 10 to 12% are fires. And of that 10 to 12%, that's 300,000 people a year who lost the gamble.
Recognizing the causes of fire is the best way to prevent fire. But this year, more than 100,000 Americans will be in a fire. For many of them, Knowing how to react will determine whether or not they survive. The MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada.
He's got to go priority.
On a bright sunny morning in 1981, 84 people died, most of them 20 floors away from the fire.
Sometimes you don't even see what's getting you. It's products of combustion, which in some cases are transparent gases. And in a lot of cases, they are lighter than air, which means that they'll migrate throughout an entire building. And people have been known to be asphyxiated, and they don't have a mark on their body.
And in the upper floors of the MGM Grand, where so many people died.
No physical fire damage in there whatsoever, none. It was all related to toxic gases. So smoke is the #1 killer.
With smoke, the lack of oxygen caused by carbon monoxide can create confusion and disorientation, preventing the victim from getting out, even if the escape path is open.
People do weird things in fires. I've gone on a couple of fatalities, for example, where people crawled under their own bed. They got up, they got disoriented, and they turned and crawled back underneath their own bed thinking they were escaping.
Whether you work in a high-rise building or a single-story structure, staying low, underneath the smoke, and getting out quickly are your two most important goals.
You may not have the luxury of being able to just look for what you need. It may be a situation where you have to get out, you have to be able to find your way out by crawling on the floor and feeling the walls. If you're not familiar with what walls lead where the exits are, where the fire extinguisher is if you need that, then you could be disoriented and trapped.
Learn how to get out. That's how you survive a fire, is to learn how to get out.
Yeah, yeah. Guys, this is what I call moment. What's that?
Somebody must pull the fire alarm.
Oh, jeez.
From television, films, and other sources, we have misconceptions about fire and fire safety. An automatic sprinkler head will not activate from smoke. The actual heat of a fire is required, typically when it reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Another misconception about automatic sprinklers is that they come on all at once. In fact, most fires are contained by 1 or 2 sprinkler heads. Perhaps the biggest misconception is that Hollywood fires are true to life.
I've seen a lot of movies where, shows guys running through burning buildings and et cetera. That's not what happens in a real fire. A real fire is black as sin. You can't see anything. Your body rebels against everything that you can possibly believe. Your eyes tear up, your nostrils get spasmodic. Then that's when people get into trouble, is that they don't realize just exactly how lethal a fire can be in a short period of time.
That's right. Correct. Very good.
Involving everyone in an ongoing training program will give your organization the skills needed to escape in a fire emergency.
Come in.
Hands-on training is the best way to learn how to operate a fire extinguisher.
Nope, not quite. There you go. You got it.
Lord! Where to position fire extinguishers is also important.
This is a large 20-pound dry chemical extinguisher with a discharge time of 25 seconds.
The type of fire extinguisher you'll need depends on where you work.
Cartridge type extinguisher. It's not pressurized like this. Okay, the one thing that you don't want to do is get too close to the fire, okay? And this is what can happen. See how it spreads? And what happens?
Safety equipment suppliers or the fire department in your area can provide training.
So you don't want to do that.
An important part of preparing for an emergency is knowing how to handle the 911 call.
Having a pre-planned idea of what you're going to say to them. We've had people call up the fire department and have a fire in progress and can't even give us the address.
We have a specific set of questions
what's your address, what's your name, what's your phone number. And even though they may have called in 911, we always want to confirm that. We want to get the engines out, get them there as quick as possible.
I believe that in the workplace, every employee has a responsibility for where they work. The owner of the business has a responsibility for maintaining conditions so that employees are not endangered. Every single solitary person in the chain is a fire prevention officer.
The parking lot, and do things like this so that you guys who are on each floor will know that it's my job to put somebody at the door, so we don't have this someone's going to do something attitude. We're going to segregate.
Good pre-fire planning anticipates the needs of employees, customers, or visitors who have disabilities. The primary concern is to locate and evaluate emergency exits.
The atmosphere on the inside of a burning building is extremely, extremely hostile. There has to be a very specific plan for someone to be evacuated. You can't use elevators, for example, in high-rises. And how do you get a wheelchair down a stairwell? And elevators are a customary way that most people get into a high-rise building, but it's not the way you get out of them when you have a fire.
Creating a team spirit, buddy systems can be developed for different aspects of emergency responses. Not everyone is willing to pick someone up and carry them out if the wheelchair can't make it through the rubble of a burning building. And I think talking about that beforehand would be helpful. I think people with mobility impairments typically know of the struggle that moving from one location to another brings. So you throw in another circumstance of panic and smoke or fire, you better be toward the front of the pack that's running out the building.
From the causes of fire in the workplace to getting out alive, we've looked at ways to effectively safeguard the future against fire. What lies ahead for us as a country is less certain.
In this country, there are 35,000 different fire departments, and they range in size from very small volunteer departments to very large metropolitan departments. And as a result, to a very large degree, there is a lack of standardization in how we approach the problem.
Cities like Scottsdale, Arizona have progressive safety codes where automatic fire sprinklers are required in every commercial and residential structure. But more than half the buildings in the United States are in rural areas like Hamlet, North Carolina, where there are no fire safety codes at all. We are the only country in the world with such a system. This annual parade in Tokyo, Japan, illustrates their country's support for fire safety activities. In the U.S., only 16 states require fire safety education in public schools, a figure that remains unchanged since 1970. At the heart of the issue is our collective attitude toward fire. Americans treat it more as a natural disaster than as a preventable danger.
We have a term for that in the fire service. It's called the catastrophic theory of reform. And what it boils down to is that most major advances in laws relating to fire and life safety have occurred after something has happened. Very seldom have we ever gotten ahead of it.
Still, there are signs of hope. The fire death rate in the United States has decreased from its peak year in 1978, and public concern does seem to be awakening.
But we're a long ways from done, because if we were done, you wouldn't be having fires like the Hamlet Chicken Fire. You wouldn't be having fires like the First Interstate Bank building. The fact is, we still have those.